Small-town Texas diner, April 1934. Lunch rush, coffee brewing, grease on the grill. Dorothy Mae watches the woman in the corner booth send her soup back twice. Cold, tasteless. The waitress is 19, bitter, tired of entitled customers. She spits in the third bowl, stirs it with that silver spoon, delivers it with a smile. The woman, makeup perfect, red fingernails, church dress, lifts the spoon slowly, pauses, sets it down, looks up. Dorothy Mae freezes. That face. The wanted poster in the post office. Bonnie Parker. The Bonnie Parker. The man at the table stands. Fedora, hand near his coat. Clyde Barrow. Outside, a black Ford V8 idles. They walk out, no shots, no scene. Just $50 on the table and a note, careful who you cross. The silver spoon sits in untouched soup. What happened to Dorothy Mae afterward, and why this single moment changed how the FBI hunted America's most wanted couple? That's the story nobody survived to tell. By spring of 1934, Bonnie Parker was 23 years old and the most wanted woman in America. Her face stared from post office walls across 5 states. The public saw glamour, Tommy guns, cigarettes, stolen cars. They didn't see the burns covering her right leg from a car crash the year before, or the nights she couldn't walk without crying. They saw poetry and rebellion. She saw exhaustion. Bonnie kept one possession from her old life, a silver soup spoon, stolen from the Adolphus Hotel in Dallas during a robbery that January, engraved initials, BP, a reminder of normalcy before fame turned toxic. Dorothy Mae Wilson worked doubles at Tucker's Diner outside Waco. 19 years old, abusive boss, stolen tips, dreams crushed under depression weight. She hated entitled customers who looked comfortable. 2 women, same age, different choices. One moment would connect them forever. Neither knew what was coming, what the newspapers didn't report. Bonnie could barely walk most days. The November 1933 crash near Wellington left her with third-degree burns down her right leg. Clyde Barrow carried her to hideouts. She wrote poetry about death while soaking bandages in cold water, waiting for pain that never quite left. Small comforts mattered now. Hot soup, soft bread, 20 minutes of normalcy in a diner booth before running again. Clyde watched everyone, hand near his .45, counting exits, reading every face for recognition. The FBI knew their pattern. Frank Hamer, the Texas Ranger assigned to hunt them, had files tracking movements, diners, gas stations, tourist cabins along back highways. Bonnie's soup orders showed up in witness reports from Arkansas to Louisiana. Dorothy Mae's chaos was different. Her boss skimmed tips. Customers treated her invisible. She swallowed rage with every forced smile, every complaint about cold coffee. The spoon was Bonnie's last thread to normal. For Dorothy Mae, that thread was about to snap. April 14th, 1934. The day everything changed. Tucker's Diner, 11:30 a.m., lunch crowd building, farmers in dusty overalls, traveling salesmen with briefcases, locals who knew Dorothy Mae's name and never tipped enough. The woman in the corner booth arrived alone. Church dress, hat with a small veil, gloves despite the Texas heat. She slid into the seat slowly, favoring her right side. Dorothy Mae barely glanced over. Another rich city woman pretending small-town Texas was charming. The first bowl of soup came back within minutes. It's cold. Kitchen error. The bowl had sat on the pass too long, while the cook argued with the dishwasher. Dorothy Mae apologized, brought a fresh bowl, steaming this time. 10 minutes later, the second bowl returned. Still cold. Now Dorothy Mae felt rage building in her chest. This entitled woman with perfect makeup and red fingernails, sitting there composed and demanding like Dorothy Mae, had nothing better to do than serve her soup. Clyde sat in the black Ford V8 across the street, window cracked, watching the diner entrance. 15 minutes maximum. That was the rule. Dorothy Mae stood at the kitchen counter, staring at the third bowl of soup. The cook was out back, smoking. The manager was in the office, counting yesterday's receipts. She was alone with her decision and 4 years of accumulated bitterness. She leaned over the bowl, spit, stirred it with a clean spoon from the drawer, smiled as she carried it back out, setting it down with exaggerated care. "Here you are, ma'am, fresh and hot." Bonnie lifted her silver spoon, the one she always carried, the one from the Adolphus, and stirred slowly. Something felt wrong immediately, a residue on the surface, a texture that didn't belong. The smell was slightly off. She set the spoon down carefully and looked up. Their eyes met. Dorothy Mae watched recognition happen in real time. The face from the wanted poster, those eyes, the slight asymmetry in her smile. Bonnie Parker. 3 seconds of absolute silence. The door opened. Clyde Barrow walked in, scanning the room with practiced efficiency. He saw Bonnie's expression, the untouched soup, the frozen waitress. His hand moved toward his coat. Bonnie shook her head. One slight movement. Clyde stopped. 2 farmers at the counter kept eating, oblivious to the moment unfolding 10 feet away. A truck driver glanced up from his coffee, then returned to his newspaper, already forgetting what he'd seen. Bonnie reached into her small purse, pulled out bills, 3 20s, folded, and set them on the table beside a handwritten note on diner napkin paper. They stood, walked to the door. No raised voices, no drawn weapons, just the sound of boot heels on linoleum, and the door closing with a soft bell chime. Dorothy Mae's hands shook as she approached the table. $50, more than she made in 6 weeks. The note, written in careful script, "Careful who you cross." The silver spoon sat in the untouched soup, reflecting overhead lights. Frank Hamer received the telephone call at 8:15 that evening in his Dallas hotel room. He was 50 years old, a former Texas Ranger with 3 decades tracking outlaws across the Southwest. Now he worked special assignment for the Texas prison system. Find Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow. Dead or alive, though everyone involved preferred dead. The diner manager in Waco had called the local sheriff. 2 people matching descriptions. Woman with a pronounced limp. Man in a fedora. Average height, nervous energy. Black Ford V8 with modified engine. They'd left an absurd tip and vanished. Hamer drove to Tucker's diner that night. Arrived after midnight. Questioned Dorothy Mae Wilson for 3 hours in the back office while she chain-smoked and answered every question with shaking hands. She told him everything. The soup complaints, what she'd done, the silence, the eye contact, the money, and the note. "She could have killed you right there," Hamer said. "Put a bullet in your chest. Walked out. Why didn't she?" Dorothy Mae had no answer that made sense. Hamer studied his files spread across the desk. Bonnie's pattern was consistent. Diner stops every 2 or 3 days, always soup, always tomato, always with extra crackers, 20-minute windows. Clyde watched from the car or stood by the door, never sat with his back to the entrance. They moved through small towns because crowds made them invisible. The silver spoon detail stopped him. His file noted it. Witnesses from the Adolphus Hotel robbery saw Bonnie pocket small items during the chaos. Not just cash or jewelry, photographs, letters, a music box, silverware. She's attached to objects from before, Hamer said. That's her vulnerability. She can't let the past go. He began mapping every diner between Texas and Louisiana, marking Bonnie's known stops, predicting routes. By morning, Dorothy Mae was front-page news. She'd told her co-worker the story before leaving her shift. I spit in Bonnie Parker's soup and lived to tell about it. By dawn, the story had spread to 3 neighboring towns. A reporter from the Waco Tribune showed up at her boarding house before breakfast. By afternoon, the headline screamed, "Brave local waitress defies outlaw queen, lives to tell the tale." The FBI arrived the next day. 3 agents in dark suits asking identical questions Hamer had already extracted. They told Dorothy Mae what she'd already guessed. She was exposed now. Fate. The Barrow gang eliminated witnesses or came back for revenge. Sometimes both. "We're placing you under federal protection," the lead agent said, making it sound like she had a choice. They moved her to a boarding house 15 miles outside Waco, supervised by rotating shifts of deputies who sat on the porch reading newspapers and watching the road. Each night, Dorothy Mae lay awake, thinking about that 3-second silence in the diner. Bonnie could have shot her, Clyde could have dragged her into the kitchen and left her bleeding between the stove and the icebox. According to newspapers, they'd killed 12 people. One more wouldn't change anything, but they'd walked away, left money, left a warning instead of a body. Dorothy Mae started wondering what she'd actually seen in Bonnie's eyes during that moment. Not anger, not threat. Something else. Something that looked almost like recognition. Like Bonnie had seen herself sitting on the other side of that booth. Young, trapped, furious, at a world that gave you nothing but took everything. Hamer used Dorothy Mae's story to refine his predictions. Bonnie was sentimental, which meant emotionally vulnerable, which meant she'd make mistakes. That same night, 90 miles away in a rented cabin outside Shreveport, Louisiana, Clyde Barrow paced the small living room like a caged animal. "We should have handled it," he said, for the 3rd time. "She disrespected you. She saw your face. She knows we were there." Bonnie sat at the wooden table, methodically cleaning the silver spoon with a cloth dampened in well water. The lamplight made the engraving visible. BP, to better days. A graduation gift from her mother, back when better days seemed possible. "She's just a kid," Bonnie said quietly, not looking up. 19. Angry at the world for breaking her. "She's a witness. She's the same age I was when all this started." Bonnie held the spoon up to the light, examining it for spots. "When you and I decided running was better than starving." Clyde stopped pacing. "You going soft on me?" Bonnie set the spoon down on the table between them. "I'm tired of being what they made us into." The silence stretched. W.D. Jones and Henry Methvin sat in the corner playing cards, pretending not to listen, but hearing every word. Bonnie had changed after the Wellington crash. The burns, the constant pain, the poetry about death she wrote in spiral notebooks. She talked about the end now like it was a destination instead of a fear. "She spit in your soup," Clyde said, his voice lower now. "You know what that means. You know what she thought of you." "I know exactly what she thought." Bonnie met his eyes. "I was her, 5 years ago, serving tables in Dallas, watching rich people eat while I went home hungry. Same anger, same bitterness, same desperation. And look where it got you." That's my point. 3 days later, Frank Hamer tracked the Barrow gang to northern Louisiana based on gas station reports and a stolen license plate spotted outside Minden. Black Ford V8, 2 occupants matching descriptions, Heading east on Highway 80, they were moving away from their established Texas roots, away from familiar territory. Hamer studied his map in the back seat of a deputy's car, marking their trajectory with a pencil. Something was wrong. Bonnie hadn't stopped at a single diner in 4 days. No 20-minute breaks, no soup orders reported anywhere along their route. Just gas stations, quick stops, constant motion like they were running from something beyond the law. She was breaking pattern, which meant Dorothy Mae's story had changed something fundamental. Inside the Ford VV8, Clyde drove while Bonnie stared out at pine forests blurring past at 60 miles per hour. They passed 4 diners that morning. She didn't ask to stop at any of them. "You hungry?" Clyde asked as they approached a 5th. "No. You always eat by noon." "Not today," Clyde glanced over. Bonnie's face was turned toward the window, but he could see her jaw clenched, the way she held herself rigid against the pain in her leg. Something had shifted in her since that diner, since that waitress, and that moment of mutual recognition. She reached into her bag for the silver spoon. The ritual she performed unconsciously, running her thumb over the engraving like a prayer. Her fingers found nothing. She checked again, searching through lipstick and bullets and folded cash. The spoon was gone. "I left it," she said quietly. "Left what?" "Doesn't matter." But her voice carried a weight that said it mattered completely. In the back seat, Henry Methvin whispered to W.D. Jones, "Something's wrong with her." Dorothy Mae Wilson sat in the boarding house, staring at the silver spoon on her dresser. The FBI had processed it as evidence, photographed it from 6 angles, documented the engraving, then returned it to her 3 days later with a property receipt. No trial coming. No need for evidence against dead outlaws. She'd become a minor celebrity overnight. The waitress who faced Bonnie Parker and lived. Newspapers from Houston to Little Rock ran the story. People drove from neighboring counties to eat at Tucker's Diner, to sit in that corner booth, to ask Dorothy Mae questions about that day. She quit after 1 week. Couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't serve soup without seeing Bonnie's face across the table. Couldn't tell the story one more time without feeling the weight of what she'd done and what she hadn't understood until too late. The diner owner offered her double wages to stay. "You're famous. People want to hear it from you. We could make real money here." But Dorothy Mae understood something the newspapers hadn't printed. Bonnie Parker could have killed her, should have killed her by every logic of survival and reputation. The Barrow gang didn't leave witnesses breathing. They didn't leave $50 tips and handwritten warnings. She picked up the spoon, turned it slowly in afternoon light coming through the window. The engraving was clearer now after the FBI's cleaning. BP, to better days. Not stolen, given. Someone had loved Bonnie Parker once, had imagined a future where better days were possible. Dorothy Mae suddenly understood. This wasn't abandoned evidence. This was a message, an acknowledgement. 2 young women trapped in different cages, both desperate, both furious, both trying to survive systems designed to break them. May 23, 1934, 4 a.m. Frank Hamer and 5 other officers positioned themselves along a rural highway outside Sales, Louisiana. Hamer had tracked the Barrow gang through careful analysis of their movements, through Henry Methvin's father, who'd turned informant, through the methodical elimination of safe routes and hideouts. This road. They would take this road. He was certain. The officers waited in the pre-dawn darkness, weapons ready, fingers on triggers. No warning would be given. No chance for surrender. The state of Texas wanted Bonnie and Clyde dead, and Frank Hamer intended to deliver. At 9:15 a.m., the Ford V8 appeared from the south, moving at moderate speed. Clyde drove. Bonnie sat in the passenger seat, wearing a red dress. They were heading toward town, maybe for supplies, maybe for one last meal. The officers opened fire without warning. 150 bullets in approximately 16 seconds. The car drifted into a ditch and stopped. Bonnie Parker died instantly, holding Clyde Barrow's hand. She was 23 years old. The FBI inventory would later list her personal effects: 2 pistols, a saxophone, stolen license plates, several photographs, letters to her mother, and clothing. No silver spoon. That was already elsewhere, given away in a final gesture of humanity. Dorothy Mae heard it on the radio in the boarding house. 2:15 p.m., May 23rd, interrupting regular programming. Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow killed this morning in Louisiana ambush. Officers fired over 150 rounds, both outlaws dead at the scene. She collapsed. Not from relief, from something else. A grief she couldn't explain or justify. Grief for someone she'd met once, for 3 minutes, over cold soup and mutual recognition. The deputies guarding her celebrated. "You're safe now," they said, opening beers, laughing with relief. "The manhunt's over." But Dorothy Mae understood. Safety had never been the point. Bonnie wasn't coming back, had never planned to return. That moment in the diner was goodbye, a final act of mercy before the inevitable end. The FBI released her from protection 2 days later. Tucker's Diner became an instant tourist attraction, where Bonnie Parker ate her last meal. The owner painted a sign, put a red star on the corner booth, raised prices. People drove from 3 states to sit where Bonnie had sat, to hear Dorothy Mae tell the story. She refused, packed her belongings, including the silver spoon, wrapped in newspaper, and moved to Fort Worth under a different name. Dorothy Mae Wilson was 53 years old. Her granddaughter, visiting for the summer, found the spoon in a velvet-lined box at the back of a dresser drawer. "What's this, Grandma?" Dorothy Mae hadn't looked at it in months. The engraving remained visible after 34 years. BP to better days. "It's a reminder," she said quietly. "Of what?" "That I was cruel to someone who showed me mercy." She told the full story then, not the newspaper version, the true version. Her bitterness, her deliberate cruelty, the spit in the soup, Bonnie's eyes, the silence, the choice not to retaliate, the $50 and the note and the spoon, left behind as a final message. "But she was a criminal," her granddaughter said. "She was 23, same age I was, both trapped, both angry, both surviving." Dorothy Mae held the spoon to the light. "Difference is, she chose grace when I chose cruelty." "Do you regret it?" "Every single day." Dorothy Mae Wilson died in 1972. She left the silver spoon to the Texas Historical Society with a handwritten note. "She was kinder than I was." Today it sits in a small museum display labeled Bonnie Parker's Personal Effects, 1934. Tourists walk past. They see the glamorized outlaw story, Tommy guns and wanted posters, the bullet-riddled Ford in photographs. They don't know about the waitress, the soup, the spit, the choice, the mercy that defined one woman's final gesture of humanity before 150 bullets ended everything at 23. The spoon rests under glass, polished and gleaming. If you look close, the engraving is still visible. BP to better days. Its curved surface reflects the viewer's face back at them. A reminder that legends are human first, that fame remembers violence while history forgets mercy. The spoon remembers both.